Welcome to Command Stack. I'm Ryan,
And I'm Garrett.
and welcome back for another episode of digesting the new update and errata. Garrett, have you gotten any games in?
Yeah, I've got to play with new Trench, cheaper points, and I played with some Django. And the Django is really fun. I got the nuke Anakin, Deltakin off the board with him. And then Trench and the carrier and everything going down in points is so good. You can fit so much stuff in this bad boy. And then I played against somebody who's running the Plo Koon Commander Wolf Arc 170 drop, and that's really funny. With how it works.
I'm really interested in that archetype because like arcs with Arc 170s, like to make them work, you had to have like Peltas with SCTs to get the extra movement because they're so slow. But with like a range 2 reinforced, RLBs, rapid launch bays, like put 4 or 5 of those in there with the Venator, like it's a lot of firepower. So I'm really curious to see how that all works.
Yeah, he used rapid launch bays, which is, I think, the most fun way to do it. But he was getting so much damage and raid tokens. He was running out of things to raid, and running out of. He would only block my redirect, right, and was just able to drill damage into me. It was great. I was really happy to see it. But
what an exciting time for Armada right now. We're getting, it's like it does feel like a new game for me. In a sense, definitely trying out new archetypes. So that's what we're gonna kind of take a look back today. As part of our series on digesting this update, also with an eye towards competitive play and the next worlds. So what we're going to do today and the next episode is we're going to actually look at the top 8 lists from Worlds and see how these lists changed. Now, we're just looking at individual lists, and the difficulty is that there are holistic changes. So even though a list changed, but did your meta change, right? And so that impact. So we're going to try and illustrate for everybody how these changes impact the top lists. And hopefully we'll be able to take some keen insights from that.
yes. Yeah, no, I think this is really interesting because, some of these lists can't even work the way they did anymore, mainly because of Link Turbo Laser Turrets, right? Because that was filling a giant hole in anti-squad and just rerolls in general, right? So we're going to start off with Andy's Admiral Ozzel list. And I really like this list. It's like a real all-around Imperial fleet. Starting off, the biggest change on his was, Jendon goes up 3 points and Reserve Hangared Up goes up a point. And between that and point defense ion cannons, it goes from 4 to 6. His list is now at 406 points, which is, he loses a squadron or loses some upgrades. I mean, really, what he has to do is drop Link Turbo Laser Turrets and drop down to like dual Turbo Laser Turrets, right?
For those that are kind of listening, it might be a better one to watch on YouTube where we have the fleets posted, or that you can kind of see them. But this is an ISD2 Gladiator with Demolisher Comsnet, kind of very typical 3 activation Imperial list with a bunch of fighters that was right at 400, and then like you said, now at 406. So something's got to change, right? If you wanted to fly this list. So let's look at it, holistically. Do you think this list is still good, even though with the points drop, everything included in there?
I think it still functions exactly the same, except for the Link Turbo Laser Turrets. Has to get changed out, and then his squad ball, he's got to lose some points. Perhaps his TIE Interceptors have to go down to TIE Fighters instead of, and then he still gets to take advantage of his 1 reserve hangar deck. It definitely loses punch. I don't think it's as powerful as it was, especially, the LTTs takes the Imperial 2 down a notch for sure.
I think that's the key thing. And we'll see this kind of in some of the other builds that we talk about. You take the LTTs off, that's 7 points, but you need some more firepower that is out of that turbo laser spot. And that could be something like, dual turbo laser turrets, right? DTTs. Maybe it's HTTs, which I'm interested in exploring at 4 points. So you definitely need to try something there just to make sure that punches harder, right? Because you're trying to, with Ozzel, you're trying to get engagement control nailed down so that when you have your activation, it's a big old activation, and then you want that extra oomph from the IST too, which you're just not going to get if you leave that slot blank.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because he has Ozzel, he can try to get fancy with quad battery turrets and like slow down his prior turn and then slow back and then speed back up after he shoots. But yeah, no, I think DTTs and then exchanging one of his TIE interceptors for a TIE fighter would probably be the slickest 6-point reduction. I think that's right. Yeah, 11 to 8. Yep. So, and then functionally, he has the same dice fixing basically. And then instead of, 2 interceptors, he's got 1 interceptor, one TIE fighter. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think his dice fixing is fine. I'm never huge on dice fixing, to be honest. I'm looking at that TIE bomber, and I didn't watch. I think I did watch his game, and here's another thing to kind of point out. We actually didn't cover the top 8 list after Worlds like in detail. Oh, and the reason was because we discussed them for 2 hours on the Ion Radio's Worlds feed. So like you can go actually see this list being played on the Ion Radio YouTube feed. And I just don't remember what that TIE bomber did during Andy's game with Mac on there. It's maybe that becomes a TIE fighter, right? You save a point there. Maybe you use those points to upgrade to expanded launchers on demo just to get a little extra oomph out of demo, or go. Maybe you go to. I like Monty, Officer Monty on that Gladiator as well, a little extra defensive protection, because we kind of think it's going to be a slightly more lethal meta. So a lot of options here. This archetype is certainly not dead. The IST is certainly great, and with fighters, like you're always going to be in the ball game if you have fighters. So yeah,
but overall, LTTs, that's the biggest hit. But moving on. We've got
so we got Nick Larson's list. Yes. You go ahead and cover it. You cover it.
This is my favorite list, and inspired me to fly it. Super similar. So this is a Grievous Carrier Dreadnought, or Grievous Carrier Providence, and it's loaded to bear. Right, he's got Rune Hako, thermal shields, IF, boosted comms, X-Rax, Pittix, H9s, Invincible, and then early warning systems, right? And then the magic here is the IF and the H9s. And then close range intel scan was his red. And then he had a hard cell with Hondo, projection experts, and bomber command center. Shockingly useful, the projection experts on a hard cell. And then a Gazanti with TI-99. And then a really clean squad ball of Wat Tambor, DFS 311, which is important because of the intel, and then 4 hyenas and 6 vulture druids. So massive 12 squad ball. And then it went from, I want to say 392 points to 388 points.
So I had 394.
394. Okay, so it went down 6 points total. Which now he has room for even more stuff, right? Because the Gazanti went down, and the carrier base price went down. So
right. The only thing that went up on his list was PDICs.
Yeah, for 2 points.
Right. And then DFS.
Oh, he also went down a point. Yeah.
Right. So he lost a ton of points, got a ton of maneuverability. He's got a 12-point bid now if he really wanted to. And this list does love going second, So it's just like, is that a component that are we just going to see? Are people just going to take these points and see massive bids, or are they going to kind of, reconfigure their list? I think this list is and we're trying to draw these grand conclusions, and it's just so early. It's going to take a year or two for this all to kind of fall out, But I still think this list is very viable. Maybe you try to fit Django in there somehow, right? Instead of DFS or something. You've run this list, a variation of it. How would you change it if need be?
Well, on the screen here, I just deleted 2 vultures and added Django. And that puts the list at 394, which is, you still have 4 trash vultures to expend, as well as your hyenas. But then you add Django. So that's dangerous. Or you could just not do that, and you could instead add flight controllers to the Gazanti. And it's only 34 points still if you lose it. And now you have options of whether, you're going to push squads or use TI-99, right?
Yeah, I think you invest the points. I don't think you necessarily keep them at.
No, you don't need more. You don't need to bid 12 points. If somebody wants to bid 12, 15 points, let them have it. All right. I don't like to play like that, but
right, maybe you just put the points into like one of your ace hyena bombers, right?
Right.
And so either one of them's fine.
Or another ace. You could, drop a. Let's see, the bomber. Let's add. Who's my favorite one? DBS. The one you could take a damage and add a die.
Right. Roll 3 blues or 3 reds.
Yeah, and then so that puts you at 400 exactly. And so now you have 3 generics and 1 ace. And if you want to keep your bid, just drop one of your vultures. You lose the even amount, but that's 11 squadrons and 3 aces. There's multiple things you can do now, though.
I mean, even more annoying for this list, right? You get a free beast of burden on that hard sell.
Yeah, even more token refreshment.
Right. Even make it more unkillable. You just with that. So
and that only puts it at 392.
Right. Free beast of burden. That's what we're talking about when we're like CIS was a big gainer here, and this list I think pretty much illustrates that point. Actually,
what you can fit instead of beast of burden, just put the new Sand Hill on it. I was using.
You already got Rune Hako though, right?
Yeah, but Sand Hill, when the Providence does a squad command, can now push 5, 6 with Sand Hill, right?
You're right, but aren't you? I guess you're using the tokens with intensify firepower. I guess from Rune. Yeah, I mean you get a free Sand Hill,
right?
It was really good.
Yeah, so like when I was running my trench list recently, I was able to push 7 squads with expanded Hangar Bay and Sand Hill off of Providence. That's a lot of alpha.
Yeah, I really don't know how you would kill this thing if it had Beast of Burden. That would be real tough to engage.
Yeah, because you can fit Sand Hill and Beast of Burden on this thing, and you're still only at 397.
Yeah, this list got much better, and then you got Grievous. So I guess maybe that's why you don't need Beast of Burden in a Grievous list.
It's just insult to injury.
It really is.
I think the Sand Hill would be my favorite addition, actually. Just being able to push that 1 extra squadron around that I wanted to.
Little insurance. Yeah, I love it. All right, let's. So that's a list that went down. Here's a list that went up. It's.
Hey everybody, I accidentally forgot to add Montefrat the officer on the ISD2 on this one, so that's why if you're listening or watching, the points that Ryan and I are talking about don't exactly add up perfectly. I do apologize, but there's a 5-point Montefrat on the ISD2. Back to the video.
Montana, who's from Canada, who got 6th at Worlds, which is a great place. His list was 395. Now it's 403. So he ran an ISD2. And on that ISD2, Reserve Hangar Decks went up and PDIC went up. And then he also had LTT. So like 3 upgrades from his ISD2 were affected. Then he's got a Gazanti where he had Reserve Hangar Decks. And then he had a Lifeboat Raider 1 with Reserve Hangar Deck. So, and then he had Jendon as well. So that's where all of his points went up in Jendon and Reserve Hangar Decks and PDIC. Interestingly, his squad ball is now 137 points, which is the cost that Jendon went up.
Yeah.
So he can change a TIE interceptor to a TIE fighter to get there, and I think it's probably just as fine. But you don't have that 5-point bid, which I think he probably really liked having. A 5-point bid in the last meta was probably enough to pretty much guarantee your choice of first or second. And so, if you really wanted to get that optionality back,
now if he does change
a little bit more.
A TIE interceptor to TIE fighter, does put it back at a 5-point bid though, so that would be a perfect change, I think. But the LTTs has got to go, right?
LTT, yeah, and then you're like, you got an ISD2 that doesn't exactly hit like a wet noodle, but like you need something, right? You need he doesn't have boosted comms on an ISD, right? So he is flying. He's doing a lot of damage with rogues. Like I'll give him that. But he likes fighting under that flak bubble of the ISD2, and that LTT flak bubble is even more dangerous. So it's he is going fast with Monty, which is nice to see. So he does have a little defensive little fight. But I think it's very interesting to kind of see a lifeboat raider. Not really sure. Yeah, I mean, he's got a little bit of work to do to kind of tweak it to get back to where it was.
Yeah. You could throw spinals on it to raise your damage ceiling, and then you're at 397. Or you could go down with DTTs. So that would be acceptable. But it's amazing. First off, that his list stayed semi-legal, except for the TIE interceptor that's got to go down to TIE fighter, because he still was under 400 with it. Which shows, this list archetype didn't change all that much as far as what's acceptable.
Right. Well, he only gets 3 points with the change from the TIE interceptor to the TIE fighter, so he won't have a bid. I wouldn't mind leading shots on this ISD2. Like leading shots used to be the staple to an ISD2, and you have enough fighter coverage. You don't really need PDIC. Just spend those 6 points into leading shots, and you give yourself an extra point, and then you have your dice control, and then put spinals on there, and you get even more firepower that you can pair with leading shots. So that's probably where I'd land if I wanted to run a list like this.
Leading shots, spinals, and a TIE fighter. Put him at 396. 4 points. It's okay. It's an okay bid.
Yeah. I mean, that probably gets you bid most of the time in this meta. Well, I think bids will be interesting. So we don't have to talk about bids right now, but I think they'll be interesting.
Yeah.
To watch. All right. So our last list that we're going to talk about today is Mac's list. So Mac got 5th, which is another amazing accomplishment. I think we tend to focus. I do want to kind of recognize this. I think we tend to focus on the winner, but just getting into the top 8 is an incredible accomplishment in this game. And so maybe I just want to just kind of acknowledge that for all these lists out there. Even making day 2 is a great accomplishment. So
right. I mean, just think that Montana, he was at top table against Peter at the end. And the only reason he got 7th is because he yeehawed into the Starhawk because, it's the last game of the day. Either win or you don't,
Exactly. I mean, he was doing really well too, right? So, in the first 2 rounds of that tournament. So I think we have a tendency, and this is kind of our culture, I'll just say, the Ricky Bobby, you're not first or last. But I reject that out of hand. These are great places, to finish. Top 8 is a really incredible accomplishment, and so I don't ever want to just kind of lose sight of that.
Right.
I think that's important for the game. All right, so to get back to Mac's list, so Mac's list was 395. It is now 398, and I think that is the only thing that changed in his list was Jendon.
That's correct.
That went up 3 points, but it was a critical change because now his fleet is Squadron Ball is at 136 points.
Yep.
So something has got to be, it's illegal. Something's got to be cut.
I think it's Morna-Key gets exchanged for a different ace.
Yeah, I think, what would you do? Morna-Key to Boba?
Yeah, that's what I just did. Boba Fett puts him at 133.
Yeah, because Boba went down, 1 point?
2 points.
2 points.
He went down from 26 to 24.
I think that's a competitive slot, or you could use Hondo, right? You could do, his list doesn't have those kind of shenanigans that you usually like with Hondo. Well, he's got Hondo Anaka officer, so he can't do that. But yeah, I like Boba. Max always like Bosk too, to get yourself another point to really reclaim all that. You can get a little bit of a bigger bit, but yeah, I think those are your rogues basically that are good bombers, good fighters, good multi-role fighters for the Empire, and I think he would be just fine. Really, I mean, Morna's incredible, but that Imperial tax has just gotten a little bit more expensive now with gender.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is a hard list to fly. I would get dumpstered if I tried to fly this actually.
So let's fill in the picture for everybody. So Mac has run. He's running Thrawn with an Imperial Star Destroyer and a Gladiator that is not a Demolisher, but it's a support Gladiator with projection experts and 7th Fleet, and that's it. That's all the ships he's got. It's nearly a 200-point ISD, and basically, I think Mac is the best in the world at running this 2-ship version, and probably because no one else does it too, right?
Yeah.
He is probably the only person that can fly it. This is definitely hard mode. Don't try this at home. It's a lot of shenanigans. A lot of what's really good about it is what I've always liked to kind of term undeniability, in that you have things that can't be stopped. Like you have early warning system. Right? Nothing will really get through early warning system. You have Brunson. You can't accuracy Brunson. You have 7th Fleet Star Destroyer. You can't accuracy that. That's kind of undeniability tech that I think is very strong in this game, and is very good in any fleet. And every faction has that kind of like undeniability, like thermal shields, right? Undeniable. So.
Yeah, this takes a lot of situational awareness when flying to like point your ship in the perfect direction to not only shoot but then defend with all these. They're undeniable, but like you got to be like near an obstacle with Brunson. You got to be within range with your 7th Fleet Star Destroyer. You've got to have the right hull zone picked for early warning systems. Like there's a lot of little decisions that have to add up to make this work.
Exactly. Yes, this is, and that makes it even harder mode. Like everything you've just illustrated there shows how difficult of a fleet this is to fly. Pick off the Gladiator and then run is my advice.
Yeah, and no dice fixing, right? No dice fixing.
Yeah, which I love to see. Just let it roll.
Awesome.
Maybe
yeah. Well, that was a quick, short, and sweet episode, everybody. We're gonna do the top 4 as well later on.
Yes, that's when the Rebels will make an appearance.
Yeah. Although I don't think they have much of the stuff that went down for the Rebels. So I think the Rebel fleets this year are going to look so much different.
Yep, agreed. All right. Well, thanks for listening. We're going to follow up again with another podcast soon. Thanks for listening to Command Stack. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Garrett.